Hello, and welcome back to Hope After Loss. I'm Marilyn Burns, and I'm glad you're here. I want to begin today with a question. Have you ever looked around and realized that everyone else seems to have gone back to their lives, but somehow you're still grieving? In the beginning, people surround us. There are phone calls, cards, flowers, meals, and people asking, "How are you doing? What can I do for you? Are you okay? Here, let's go to the show. Let me do your laundry." It's just a lot sometimes for some of us, but it is helpful. And then, little by little, the phone stops ringing, the cards stop coming, and people return to their routines. The world moves on, but your heart may not be ready to move with it. And sometimes that's when grief can feel the loneliest. Maybe it's been a year since your loss, maybe 5 years, maybe 20. And perhaps you've even wondered, shouldn't I be over this by now? Today I want you to hear something very clearly, if you will. Love doesn't have an expiration date. So why should grief? There's no calendar that tells us when we're supposed to stop missing someone we love. After almost 50 years of sitting with people through some of the most painful moments of their lives, and through my own experiences with the loss of my son Chris, I've learned that healing doesn't mean forgetting, and moving forward doesn't mean leaving the person we love behind. So today we're going to talk about what happens when everyone else seems to have moved on? The part of our heart is still grieving. And perhaps most importantly, we're going to talk about how you can continue living, loving, laughing, and finding joy again while still carrying that person with you. Because remember, those two things can exist together. Grief can remain, and so can hope. And that's what this podcast is all about. So, grief isn't something we complete according to a timetable. And don't let anyone tell you that you're doing it right or wrong or you've skipped it. Like I've heard people say, well, my next door neighbor felt I needed to come in and see you because they don't think I've grieved the loss of my dog. Well, who are they to determine that? Okay, but that can be very confusing when we hear those things from someone that we trust or someone that we love that we're close to. There is no timetable for this. It's 6 months, 1 year, 5 years, 20 years. What about this, rest of our lives? The passage of time doesn't determine how much someone meant to us. And we must always remember when we're questioning ourselves, just that love doesn't have an expiration date. So why would grief? So let's look at it this way, okay? Now, when we look at how we can tell when other people are moving on in life, okay, it can feel very strange to us to see all of that happening around us. And again, it could bring us down because we could think there's something wrong with us. Okay, but the world keeps functioning after our world has changed. People laugh again. They'll take vacations. Their holidays will come and they'll celebrate it. Birthdays arrive and you can see cars in people's driveways because they're celebrating. Seasons change. And eventually someone may ask, and I hope not, but it happens, aren't you feeling better yet? Now, that implies that we're not moving on. Okay, and I do believe that people mean well when they say that because they want to see that we're okay. All right, but that can be very hurtful and confusing. And so when people say that, they might see us in a moment where maybe we're shedding some tears or we don't feel like going out to eat right now. Well, there could be a lot of explanations for that, but if it is that you're just having a down moment, I call it a grief spasm. Well, if you don't allow yourself to do that, it won't be done properly for you. And so we can't let others talk us in or out of things. It's really important that we stay present and we embrace who we are and where we are in this process because it's our process. And if we're constantly saying, "What's wrong with me?" Like, "Why aren't I laughing yet?" Or like I know in my past, I thought, "Boy, am I going to taste my food again?" Or, am I really going to have a belly laugh ever again? Because I love to laugh. It's a really important part of who I am. I love to see the humor in the moment. Something else that I've learned about grief. As time passes, it doesn't always look the way we expect it to look. And it doesn't always look like it did in the beginning. I mean, when I think about people who come in to me and it's maybe a week later or, a month later, they're still not perhaps eating or their hygiene is lacking or they're not back to work or, they're not getting out of bed, they're not doing the laundry. That's a major depression. And sure, that's what somebody would interpret as grief, just as we would. Oh, I'm grieving heavily. Okay, but years later, grief may appear differently. I mean, for some folks, it's fatigue, it's irritability, it's loneliness. Now, some of my clients will isolate. And, when I look at if they've had a traumatic experience from the loss, then they might be going into the flight, which is avoiding and just hiding out and not really wanting to give, what's going to be necessary to get up, get dressed, do my hair, so that I can go out with someone who's invited me. There could be a lot of nostalgia and tears that seem to come from nowhere. I mean, you're okay, and then suddenly you feel like you want to cry. Maybe you don't, but you're fighting it, and you know you are. Or it's like a desperation years later to just hear someone's voice again because you miss them so desperately. You just want to look at them. You want to hear their voice. You want to smell their cologne or perfume when they're in the room. And a song can do this. It could set us into this type of grief, 5 years later, 10 years later, a certain smell. When I smell Old Spice when I'm going to visit my aunt in the nursing home, I think of my father because that was his thing. You could be driving past a restaurant and, and suddenly a memory comes up. Or you find something in a drawer. Not long ago, I found a note that my son wrote to me. And it was oh gosh, I don't know, it looked like maybe he was 8 or 9 years old. I was going through stuff and he told me how much he loved me and that I was the best mom in the world. And he was going to miss me, when he went on his trip for school. And yeah, that was a little bit of a setback for me. Sometimes the body remembers an anniversary before our actual conscious mind does. And that's interesting. You might start feeling the fatigue, or you might start feeling the irritability or fighting back tears. And you're like, what's going on? Clients will come in and I'll say, well, what do you think's going on? I don't know. I really don't. I know, in like 5 weeks is the anniversary death of my father or my dog or my mother. And so there it is, the body's starting to go into remembering, even though we're not making the connection so much consciously. And a lot of us we hear so much about the painful firsts that we're dreading them. We're scared to death of them. Like everyone does, have a tendency to emphasize those firsts. The first Christmas without them, the first birthday, the first anniversary. But what about the 5th Christmas, the 10th birthday, the 19th anniversary? What happens when those painful firsts are over? For me, sometimes, I don't even realize it's the day, but I'll think of my son in strange ways. Like my other son, my surviving son, and I, we went on vacation, and just certain moments we would both look at each other and say, oh, Chris would love this, or Chris would have loved this experience. I mean, he was really big on going to aquariums, and he always wanted one. And until it fell over and all the dirty water was all over his school clothes that I just bought him, because of course they were on the floor instead of hung up in the closet. You know how those stories go. But there were just moments, when we were eating a good meal or we were walking the beach, and we would think of him. And it had nothing to do with an anniversary date. It was just that, I believe spiritually that they're there with us when we suddenly start to think about them. And, I was telling my other boy, where else would he be but with us on vacation? He would have been here if he lived. And so I believe he is here, that we think so much about him at times. So it's just all in how you want to embrace it, how you want to believe about it. And it is time to decide, what you want to believe. Now, this brings me to something I think is important. There's a difference between moving on and moving forward. Okay? It's really important that we build a life. It's really important that we laugh again, that we think about traveling, that we fall in love, that we enjoy our grandchildren, that we have wonderful days, meaningful days, joyful days, belly laughs. And we're still going to be missing that person who died. So it's a real personal choice, but it also ties into a belief system about how you can carry these memories, these moments personally in your heart. When I feel really good about things, I have decided through the years to just believe that this is what Chris wants for me. He's encouraging me to laugh. He's encouraging me to enjoy myself. And I believe that when we can accomplish that it's easier for them to rest in peace. And that's my belief system. It doesn't have to be yours, but it works for me. Because when I am having a good time, a wonderful time, I think he must be really looking down on this and feeling so good and grateful that I am able to do this. And it makes it easier for me to move forward and carry all of what I have from my life with Chris in my heart. So I think that part of moving forward is to believe that, joy doesn't betray grief, and grief doesn't cancel joy. It's really necessary. It's part of moving on. And, tying this in with the beginning of this podcast, when I said, you'll look around and you'll see people going about their life. Well, that has to be a life lesson for us because really the bottom line is the thing, in my opinion, now this is my opinion, okay, but I believe that when we can laugh again and when we can smell again and when we can taste again, we're healing. Our sensory system is not screening. It's allowing us to live again. Because in the beginning, it screens, it shuts things down because we can't bring anything else in. We're on sensory overload. But when these things happen, when you can smell and taste and see and feel, it means we're healing and it means we're living. And that's the best medicine for grief, is to live your life. Because it's a life lesson. It teaches you that you can grieve and also live. You can be sad and remember your loved one, but also have a good time. And so part of moving forward, okay, without feeling like you're leaving them behind, is to say their name, tell their stories, keep the traditions. And, it's important to create new ones. Reach out to someone safe when a difficult anniversary is approaching. And, just give yourself permission to have those difficult days. You're not going to avoid them. And don't let somebody tell you that there's something wrong with you because you're having one. No, it's a real part of moving forward, but you're not leaving them behind. And there's a lot of support groups out there, professional help, that can really teach you and help you to do this without feeling like you're leaving someone behind. And don't wait for somebody else to give you permission to remember anything or relive anything or talk about things that need to be talked about. Okay? Because no one's been left behind. You're moving on because it helps them, in my opinion, to rest in peace when they see that they haven't destroyed your life because they had to say goodbye for who knows what reason. It's an important part of the process. So if it feels as though everyone else has moved on while part of you is still grieving, then please don't measure your healing by someone else's behavior or their calendar. You aren't required in any way to stop loving someone simply because time has passed. And when you are moving on with your life, you're loving them even more, in a sense, because you're allowing them to do that. And that's my belief system. Again, it doesn't have to be yours. And it's something to think about, but maybe healing isn't leaving them behind. Maybe healing is learning how to carry their love with you as you continue living. So remember, be gentle with yourself because there's always hope after loss. And again, this is Marilyn Burns, and thank you for listening today. And I hope you enjoy the rest of your weekend. And I will touch base with you for episode 13 in 2 weeks.